Okay. So we're coming back from private session, and now we're in public session. So thank you all for coming. Ken, would you like to lead us in flag salute?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start with announcements, and this is my first time getting to recognize state champions or sectional champions. So I'm going to move over here to the podium. The board is pleased to welcome the Westfield High School varsity bowling team and their coaches tonight. Following a season that included 8 team scores of over 3,000 and a 17-1 record as 2018-2019 Watchung Conference champions, the team earned a championship trophy last month at the North 2 Group 4 sectional tournament in Linden. Additionally, Will Shepard, senior, who earned a varsity bowling letter as a freshman, won the 2019 Union County Conference individual bowling tournament in the boys division. Congratulations. Will also bowled a perfect game, 300 score, on December 8th in the Westfield Warren Wheeler tournament. Congratulations. I'd like to call you all up to receive a certificate and be together as a team for recognition. So as I call your name, if you come up and line up in the front of the room, that would be great. Tyler Devitt. Jonathan Grossman. Dylan Kerstead. Dante Morales. Austin Peterson. Trey Rabinowitz. Jared Saltzer. William Shepard. And these boys couldn't do it on their own, but with the help of their coaches, and we'd like to recognize them also. Coach Ralph Corey. And Coach Al Rabinowitz. So it's a very good-looking group of guys, number one. Not only, I'm sure you're great bowlers, you have to be great in math, because I did used to bowl somewhat, and just the math of putting it all together, a strike, a spare, put it, and so forth. So congratulations. It's a true honor to win a state championship, and we're very, very proud of you. So I want to turn it over to the coach if you have a couple of words you'd like to say. Oh.
I'm a phys ed teacher, so I'm used to a loud voice. Thank you to the Board of Ed for tonight's recognition of the players, our season, and our program. It is truly an honor to receive this recognition. Our journey to this year's success started 5 years ago when Coach Al and myself developed a middle school feeder program that would draw more interest to bowling at Westfield High School. The players here tonight have all come through that middle school program. I want to personally thank this group for all their hard work, their commitment, and their passion towards the program. Most importantly, I want to thank this group for truly becoming a team that played for one another. Coach and I are extremely proud of all their success this season and the growth they have achieved over the last 5 years as athletes and young men. Also want to congratulate the parents on tonight's special evening. I want to thank Coach Al for volunteering his time, his energy, and dedication to the program over the last 5 years. Thank you again for setting time aside at tonight's board meeting to honor our athletes and program. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
I think that's easy for faster. I'm not.
There you go.
Well, there is slightly fewer members.
I know.
I've seen the space yard team running early, but they're that formula which is
When I was
Rub it in. Do you see color?
there's not that many.
it's down a little.
Thank you.
I was one meeting
Season is 4.3.
Okay. So we're going to move on to other announcements. Rob, do you have any announcements?
I have two. The Westfield High School Wind Ensemble departs tomorrow, March 13th, for Annapolis, Indiana, to take part in the Music for All National Concert Band Festival. The group received an invitation in July after undergoing a very selective application process last spring. WHS is only the fifth high school from New Jersey to receive an invitation in the festival's 28-year history. They join schools from 24 other states and territories, spanning from Hawaii to Puerto Rico. The Wind Ensemble performance will take place at 6:45 p.m. on Thursday, March 14th, and can be watched online by visiting the Westfield High School Band website at www.westfieldhsbands.org. Congratulations to members of the Wind Ensemble and to band directors Christopher Vitale and Trevor Sindorf. And secondly, congratulations to Westfield High School gymnast Kayla Azaretto, who is this year's recipient of the Greater Westfield Unico Brian Piccolo Sports Award. Kayla will be recognized at the annual awards dinner on May 14th. Named after professional football player Brian Piccolo, this award recognizes excellence in athletics, integrity, and leadership.
Thank you. Tara? Michael?
Yes, I have one. As previously announced, the Westfield Public School District has created a series of short TED Talks to explain social and emotional learning and each of the 5 core competencies, with examples of how they are being used in our district and the research that tells us why they work. This 6-part series is now complete and can be found on the district website at westfieldnjk12.org under the Social and Emotional Learning on the Family Resources tab. We hope this series helps you to better understand the tremendous benefits of social and emotional learning.
Thanks, Michael. Brendan?
Thank you.
Yes, I have two. Edison 8th grade trumpet player Andrew Mattis has been accepted into the New Jersey Association for Jazz Education Junior High School Regional Jazz Band. Andrew auditioned against some of the best trumpet players from Central Jersey to earn a spot with the Region Jazz Band, and will be performing with this prestigious group on April 7th at Rahway High School. Congratulations to Andrew and to Edison Band Director John Scazzaro. And the town of Westfield is seeking public input regarding its master plan reexamination and strategic parks plan. Community workshops have been scheduled to give Westfield residents, business owners, and other stakeholders the opportunity to participate firsthand in the planning process. Dates for the interactive public forums are March 21st, April 3rd, April 24th, April 29th, and May 5th. For more information, including times and locations of the community workshops, visit www.westfieldnj.gov/futurewestfield.
Brian, do you have any?
Yes. March is Youth Art Month. Shoppers in downtown Westfield can enjoy paintings, drawings, and sculpture designed by approximately 330 students from our 10 public schools on display in Merchants windows, as well as at the Westfield Memorial Library and RMC Studios in Garwood. In coordination with Youth Art Month, RMC Studios is hosting an open house for the general public to view student artwork in unique gallery settings at 207 Center Street in Garwood this Friday, March the 15th, from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
Thank you. Ken?
Yes. Congratulations to the cast and crew of Edison's Intermediate School production of Beauty and the Beast, which took place before enthusiastic audiences last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday under the direction of Michael Altman. I actually was in the Saturday performance. It was excellent. The kids were fantastic. But if you missed that one, you got two other chances. Next up for spring musicals, Sweet Charity at Westfield High School this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with 7:30 p.m. performances, followed by next week by Roosevelt's Bye Bye Birdie on Thursday, March 21st at 4 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, March 22nd and 23rd at 7 p.m. And when you're done with the shows, calling all families to the Midday Madness Interactive Clue Hunt, which is Sunday, April 7th from 1 to 4 p.m., beginning at 76 Elm Street. This is the rain date. It was supposed to be this past Sunday. Families will be their own team and will use cunning wit and problem-solving skills to decipher clues that lead them to various locations throughout downtown Westfield. Cost is $10 per adult and $5 per child to be paid at the registration table at 76 Elm Street on the day of the event, cash or check. For more information on registering for the event, contact Beth Berner at the Downtown Westfield Corp at b.berner@westfieldtoday.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Gretchen?
I have two announcements as well. First is the Rotary Club of Westfield is accepting letters of nomination for the 27th Annual Charles Philhauer Fellowship Award, which recognizes an outstanding elementary school teacher every year. Nominations should specify ways in which the teacher has demonstrated outstanding teaching, interest in children, and continued pursuit of professional growth. To be eligible for the award, a teacher must have worked full-time in grades kindergarten through 5th grade in Westfield for a minimum of 5 years. Nomination letters should be sent to the Charles Philhauer Fellowship Committee of the Rotary Club of Westfield, care of Office of the Superintendent of Schools, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, 07090, or they can be emailed directly to rotaryphilhauer@westfieldnjk12.org. The nomination deadline is Friday, April 12th, 2019. And finally, I want to congratulate the following Westfield High School students for achieving perfect scores of 36 on sections of the February 2019 ACTs. Henry Meiselman, who scored 36 on science and STEM sections, Jacob Rock for English and reading, Brianna Weber for reading, and Abby Zidell for English. It's an amazing accomplishment, and congratulations.
Thank you. Amy?
Yes, I have two also. On March 10th, Westfield was represented by 40 students in the Gateway Regional Odyssey of the Mind tournament, with teams of students demonstrating their creativity, ingenuity, and presentation skills in specific problem-solving categories. The following teams placed first in the regional competition and will advance to the state finals on April 6th at Ewing High School. From McKinley, Christian Bonapane, Emma Krall, Amelia Ng, Dylan Lagrimas, Madeline Smith, and Logan Welsh, with parent coaches Hillary Krall and Suzanne Welsh. From Tamaquas, we have Mahi Pajwani, who's actually from Jefferson, Nikki Patel, Alice Schaefer, Etta Schaefer, Madeline Schlitzer from Jefferson, Sonia Seidemann from Jefferson, and Bridget Whitlock from Jefferson, with parent coaches Lee Schaefer and Mary Wickens. So nice that the schools could team up on that one. And then from Edison, we have Ben Ackerman, Ted Krall, Lucas Gunsberg, Owen Ng, Avery Keith, Nate Reinders, and Matt Rotter, with parent coaches Aaron Keith and Ken Rotter. Congratulations to all of our Odyssey of the Mind competitors. That's great, and good luck. This is a reminder that the 26th Annual Awareness Expo is tomorrow night, March 13th, from 7:15 to 9:45 p.m. at Edison Intermediate School. The event is sponsored by the Westfield PTC Special Education Committee and offers 4 informative sessions. The expo is open to the public and free of charge. More information can be found in the Community Flyers folder under the Family Resources tab on the district website. And it's a great event, and I will be there. So,
Thank you. Dr. Dolan, do you have any?
I do not.
I just want to, we have a new board member at the table tonight, so I'd like to welcome Brian Morrissey, who was appointed, I guess, last month, and has all his paperwork, so welcome.
Sworn in.
And my second announcement is in reference to our next board meeting, which will be held on Tuesday, March 26th at 7:30 p.m. at 302 Elm Street, during which we will recognize more of our student athletes. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, March 22nd on the board section of the district website and in the business office at 302 Elm Street. Thank you. We'll move on to our superintendent's report. Do you have something for us, Dr. Dolan?
Public first.
Oh,
Agenda item.
oh, no, sorry, I did skip one again. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public for agenda items only. If you're here in reference to any agenda items, seeing nobody come forth to the podium, then we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Dolan.
Thank you. So at our board meetings, we have been working on the budget for the next school year for quite a few weeks, actually. And we've received another piece of information that helps form that budget just this past week. So I'm going to turn it over to our business administrator, who's Dana Sullivan, and she'll be presenting a report on the proposed budget for the board.
Hi, so as Dr. Dolan mentioned, 2 weeks ago, we presented a draft budget. On Thursday afternoon last week, we received state aid. So this budget presentation tonight will reflect the final budget as it is now, and that we are asking you to approve this evening, and then we will send it on to the county. So just to go over again what the calendar has been for the budget. This is the board calendar, keep in mind. The administration and staff have been working on this much longer than than what this calendar reflects. It actually starts in November and brings us to this date, and when we finally end in April. So December 4th, the board had a workshop where we discussed the goals for the budget and the parameters for the staff to build the 1920 budget. The last board meeting, I presented a draft of the budget to you. As I noted on March 7th, last Thursday, we received state aid information from the state. Tonight, we are asking you to approve a tentative budget to be submitted to the state. That budget is due March 20th, which is next Wednesday. The county then has about a month to review the budget and approve it for advertisement. It will appear in the Westfield Leader on April 25th, and then on April 30th, we will hold a public hearing for comments on the budget, and then the board will adopt the final budget at that time. So the budget that exists tonight, you can make changes between now and April 30th, but you cannot increase the budget because we are at the cap. So the goals for this budget were to maintain class sizes within the policy guidelines that we currently have. We wanted to maintain the funding for recently approved courses, also maintain funding for the school resource officers. As you know, we now have 3 resource officers that's split between all 10 schools. We wanted to add funding for a health and wellness coordinator since SE, social emotional learning, has been a priority for us for the last several years. We wanted to add a position to help us with that initiative. We wanted to make sure we had funding provided for recess requirements, and we have now determined that there were no additional funds needed for that. Back at that point in December, we weren't sure if we would have to add money for that. We wanted to maintain the fund balance at the 2% max that we can, so that's the fund balance that is undesignated that can be used for emergencies as the year goes on. And we wanted to stay within our 2% cap plus any eligible waivers that we were maybe able to take advantage of. So the revenue side of the budget, the local tax levy, of course, is the major part of our budget. State aid, as you can see reflected up there, we did receive a $452,000 increase, and I'll talk more about that in some of the following slides. We participate in the Special Education Medicaid initiative as we are required to by law, and we are estimating an increase there That's mostly set by the state, the amount that we budget for that. We are going to continue to take $750,000 from our surplus and use it as revenue in this budget, and we've been doing that for the last several years, as you recall. And then there's other areas of the budget, the other revenues make up about $969,000 of the budget. The major part of that is interest income that we receive on the capital and maintenance reserves that we hold in the bank. So as you can see on the next slide, here's a breakdown of our state. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the slide, jumping ahead. And this is just a pie chart that reflects how much of our budget. So we are 94% of our budget roughly is supported by local tax revenue. And I have some more slides later to show the impact of state aid and why this number is so high, why the tax levy number is so high here. The next slide is the breakdown of the state aid. So we receive 3 different types of basic state aid. Transportation aid stayed flat. The aid for special education is where we saw the increase in the $452,000, and the security aid also stayed flat. So our basic state aid went up from $3.8 million to $4.2 million. The extraordinary aid is not an entitlement. That's an aid where we submit an application every year. So we have budgeted $975,000. We haven't even submitted the application yet for this year because they're not out and available for us to submit. And just so you know how that works, it's for special ed children that have extraordinary costs, so just as it's entitled. And then basically we get usually around 65% of the total amount that we're entitled to. So we don't get the full amount. And we budget $975. We usually get a little bit more than that, but to be conservative, because we never know what that percentage is going to be, whether it's going to be in the 65 or lower. So we usually get a little more than $975, but we budget for the $975.
So that's a little bit below 65%, the $975
Yes,
figure?
yeah,
Okay.
correct.
We're entitled to, and we ask for more, but this is about
Correct.
what you expect. Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Our application will reflect another
The full amount.
35% of that,
Yeah.
roughly. Our debt service aid went up from $771,000 to $779,000, so that's not a large change. And those are all the changes that we see reflected in the state aid. The next slide. So this slide, the reason that we got an increase this year is because the state has been trying to implement the formula. So we have a funding formula that bases state aid on a per pupil basis for different types of the aid, transportation, special ed, and whatnot. That formula has not been implemented in a number of years. The amount of aid has just been held flat. So the state has been trying to start implementing that, and they're supposed to be phasing it in over a 4-year period. The reason for that is the districts that see the opposite, where they're going to lose money. They didn't want to cause such a tremendous impact in 1 year. So from our aid, if you look at the formula, we should have received $7.3 million this year in state aid if that formula was fully implemented, and rather than the $4.2 million. So while we're happy to have the $452,000 increase, we really should see $7.3 million.
And Dana, that's over, is it 4 or 5 years? I can't remember.
2024 will be when it's
Oh,
fully
okay,
implemented.
Okay.
So the next slide shows you the aid that we should have had over the past 10 years or so. So back in 2009-10, our basic state aid was $4.6 million. We are not even to that level now, 10 years later. The 10-11 was when we had the major reduction, not only Westfield, but every district saw those huge decreases in state aid. Although, again, we're happy to have an increase, you can see that we've basically lost $18 million in aid over the last 10 years. So we're hoping that the state will continue to fund the formula so that Westfield gets somewhat of its fair share, because this is pretty startling, I think, this slide. So the tax impact. This is a little bit difficult this year to calculate tax impact because of the reeval that's going on, or that basically is almost done at this point. So I did calculate it both using old tax rates and estimated new tax rates, and it comes out relatively close. So the increase to the tax levy is 2.8%, and the average homeowner would see in a year about a $275 increase on their school taxes. So now to the expenditure side of the budget. How do we spend the money? Approximately 82% of our money goes for salary and benefits. That is typical in any school district. We are a very labor-intensive industry, so most of our money is on salary and benefits for staff. We have another roughly 6% of that for special ed students that we send out of district because of special needs that we cannot meet in district programs. Another 4% roughly is for transportation and insurance costs. Another 4% for supplies, materials, and equipment, and most of those supplies are instructional as well, classroom costs. And a very small percent is spent on our cleaning, repair, and maintenance. And that's why when we talk, I think at our next board meeting, we're going to talk about the 5-year facilities plan, and that's why our capital reserve money and our maintenance reserves are so important for us to be able to maintain our facilities, because in the operating budget, we put as much money as we can into the classroom rather than into building costs. And then another small percent is for outside providers that we bring into district. And these are also mostly working with students. The behaviorists, the OTs, the PTs are all for students. Legal, of course, is more of an administration of cost. So that's the big picture of how the budget is spent. Because we are so labor intensive, we gave you a breakdown of where the staff are. So 47% of our staff are in regular ed classrooms. Another 30% are for special ed teachers and paras. So both of those together are directly working with students all the time. Another big piece of the pie is nurses, guidance, and librarians also working with students. We have 6% work is our administration, that's our principals, supervisors, and the secretaries in the schools. So those are school-based administrative costs. 3% is operations, which is mostly the central office staff that we have. And then 7% is maintenance, so that's including also all of our custodians, which are out in the schools, which is the biggest part of our maintenance staff. So where are we from the 18-19 budget to the 19-20 budget? 1.4 million of that is for salary increases, and that's for existing staff. So those are, most of our bargaining units have contracts in place, so these funds will be for negotiated contracts. We do have 2 that will be negotiating contracts for July 1, so this budget reflects an estimated increase for those 2 units. Health insurance, we're budgeting a $1.6 million increase. So as you know, several years ago, we self-insured our health insurance and our prescription benefits, and we have saved the district millions of dollars by making that move. And in the last 2 budgets, we actually had relatively low increases in health insurance. We're not having a great year this year. We're still doing better than we would in a fully insured health plan. But because of that, and on advice from our brokers, we're budgeting a larger increase than we've had to in health insurance for next year, in case our experience continues next year to not be so great. As I mentioned earlier, we added 1 position for a health and wellness coordinator. We're still working out the details of what that position is going to look like, but we do have the funding in there for that. We have 2.1 teachers at the elementary level. The 2 teachers there are for enrollment increases at several of the schools, and the 1/10 of a teacher is an increase in the basic skills teacher at Lincoln School. So she's going from part-time, I think it might be 0.6 to 0.7 or something like that. And then in order to get to cap, we kept all of the other areas of the budget to only a $30,000 increase. So we've been very, very tight with the non-instructional areas of the budget. And just to, you don't have to go back to the slide, Mary Ann, but just to highlight the difference between, I thought I had a slide in there and I must have lost the slide at some point. The $452,000 that we added back, so in the state aid that we received, the reason we added that back to the budget, we added it back to 2 areas, special education and to technology. those were two things that we reduced in order to get to cap in the first draft. The technology were things that we were waiting to see if we could have bought it maybe at the end of this school year out of the existing budget, but I'm not sure we can, so we put that back into the budget. And then the special ed was in out-of-district transportation. I had budgeted a fairly large increase in the 1920 budget because that's another area where we're running really high this year. I've talked with almost all of you about the issues that we have with transportation and the bus driver shortage, and our costs for transportation are just rising and rising. So I had cut that to get to cap, but I wasn't that comfortable with that cut. So I added it back to that account so that we would have to a number that I think is safe for next year. So that's where the difference is from 2 weeks ago to today. Cost containment measures, again, we did talk about this 2 weeks ago, and I just mentioned earlier about self-insuring our medical plans. The out-of-district transportation that I talked about, we actually combine our routes with other school districts to save money, and we will continue to do that. We belong to numerous cooperative purchasing groups where we are able to get the economies of buying with 200 or 300 other school districts so that the costs that we pay for supplies are cheaper than they would be if we were purchasing or bidding on our own. We did install a couple of years ago solar panels on 5 of our schools, and that's enabled us to cut our electric costs by roughly $100,000 a year. We do work closely with the town of Westfield and the Department of Public Works in particular, and share services with them, which enables us to reduce some costs on our side. We have been able to bring back into districts some special ed programs that have also saved us money. And we have been able to see some reductions in our workers' compensation costs over the last number of years. And again, because of the fact that most of our budget is in labor, workers' comp tends to be the next most expensive insurance that we have after medical and prescription. So that's an area that we've been focusing on in order to reduce our costs, and we have been successful there. So we just show this slide to show that we do all those areas of cost containment that we just talked about were not in instructional areas. They were in areas of the budget where we do not impact the classroom. That's always our goal to do that. We can't always do that, but we certainly start there. And our cost per pupil continues to remain low compared to other school districts. You can see the state is that yellow line there. That number is $15,258 compared to our $13,368 or 9. I can't see the number. Per child. So that's almost $2,000 a child. If you multiplied that by 6,300 kids we have in the district, that's how much more our budget would be if we were spending at the state level. So, with the small amount compared to other districts that we're spending it in the right places, and it's in the classroom, and we certainly see the results based on the kids that we see at every board meeting. So that concludes my budget presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. You guys got lots of details on Friday. You got that. The legal budget is on schoolboard.net under school board. So if you didn't get a chance over the weekend, you can go in and look at that at any time. It's lots and lots of detailed. I think it's 150 pages. But any questions you have, we need to approve it tonight to submit it to the county, but our final vote will be April 30th. So any questions you have in the meantime, I'm happy to answer.
So the state number that we got, the 452,000, that's not locked in stone. That could still change from now till
July 1st.
Well, it's locked in stone as far as our budget goes.
Okay.
So I've never seen this happen until a couple of years ago. So that number used to always be locked in stone. And then a few years ago, that changed. So I wouldn't say this year that it's locked in stone. What would happen is, what I've seen happen in the last couple of years, not to us, but to other districts, the state, when they do their budget, which sometimes will go either right to the end of June, sometimes even into July, if they make reductions to our aid, then we're gonna have to adjust our budget at that time. That's much more difficult, of course, than it is to make adjustments now, because if we needed to reduce staff for some reason, we've already issued contracts to all of our staff. I don't expect that big of a change, but I don't know. We did hear that the districts that are losing state aid, they were down protesting last week in Trenton, and we've heard that they're gonna have some kind of meetings, I don't know. So the answer is it used to be set in stone, but it's not anymore. Until the state budget is final, these numbers won't be final, but they will be final for the budget that we submit. And then changes will have to be made at that time.
From what I understand, with the entire assembly up for election this year, there's really not a lot of appetite to change state aid numbers again, 3 years in a row.
Yeah, the last couple of years, we received additional aid in July or August. So that was easy to deal with because adding at that time was fine, so.
I did just have a question. You'd mentioned the waivers that allow us to go a little over 2%.
Right.
Could you maybe just explain for the public what that means?
Sure, so the cap on the tax levy increase is 2%. So we can raise the tax levy 2%. So again, that's tax levy, not tax rate, two different things. And then in addition to that, because of certain things, we can increase it beyond that. One of the reasons that we can increase beyond 2% is if our health insurance is increasing more than, and this is a complicated calculation, but it's based on the state health benefit plan. So it takes the amount that's going up, compares it to 2%, and whatever that difference is the amount of the waiver that we can receive. So our waiver for health insurance calculates out to $733,000. We've also taken a waiver for banked cap. So that means 2 years ago, we could have increased our budget $69,000 more than we did. And we chose not to do it at that point because we didn't need the money. So that money carried forward to this year. And this year, we recommended that we take that because of the fact that most of our salary increases were going up more than 2%. So in order to get to that 2% cap without it cutting any program or costs, so we're basically up about $800,000 above the 2%, hence the 2.8%.
Okay.
Dan, is there still a 3-year use it or lose it with the banked cap?
Yes.
Okay, so we had to use it
Yes.
this year or we'd lose that
Correct.
$70,000?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and we now have no banked cap.
Right.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Dana?
No, not at this time.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Dr. Dolan. As always, it's a very fiscally responsible budget, and I know there's a lot of work that goes into it, and we do appreciate all that you guys do. So thank you. Moving on, I'd like the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on February 26, 2019, and the private minutes of February 26, 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ken? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or anybody against?
Everybody that wasn't on the board yet?
Okay. Personnel, Amy.
Yes, I would like the board to consider items 1 through 18. Do I need a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Ken, thank you. I think, Dr. Dolan, you have an item you'd like to highlight for us?
I do. We have two retirements that I'm announcing tonight. Both of these individuals are retiring at the end of the school year. So first we have Mary Lee Macenzio, who has been an elementary art teacher in the district for the last 15 years. She has enjoyed working with young artists at Franklin, Washington, Tamaulipas, and most recently Wilson schools. Through multiple teaching strategies, various types of media, and popular subject matter, she has helped students express themselves creatively. Mary Lee's great joy has been working with students who initially tell her that they are not good artists, and then seeing their excitement and pride as they progress and fill their portfolios with skillful results. Actually, you can see some of the work of her students in our hallways here at Elm Street. Mary Lee is appreciated and respected by her colleagues, particularly those in the music and world languages departments, because she aligns some of her art projects with their curricula. And our second retirement is for Diane Scudato. She's retiring after more than 25 years as a speech and language specialist, where she has supported students in McKinley, Franklin, Washington, Wilson, and Roosevelt schools. Diane has been a strong advocate for her students and is knowledgeable about both their academic and social progress. She works closely with parents, sharing carefully designed strategies and techniques to use at home. She has found it rewarding, and she has volunteered to speak to 7th grade students in their health classes. And her topic was she wanted to make sure to educate them about the rise in hearing loss in teens and how to safeguard their hearing. Diane has really been a valuable resource to her colleagues, and she will be missed. We wish both Mary Lee and Diane a happy and productive retirement.
Thank you.
Michael Beelan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Abstain.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nolan. On to facilities. Gretchen, do you have a report?
No report tonight. As Dana mentioned, we will be hearing about the 5-year facilities plan at our next board meeting. But I don't think there's anything to report tonight.
No.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Amy, do you have any report for long-range planning?
I do not have a report, but I am very excited that we finally have a meeting scheduled. I never knew that long-range planning meant planning for the meeting, but anyway, Tuesday, April 2nd, we'll be meeting, and after that, I'll have a report, so thanks.
Great, thank you. Brendan, policies.
I too have no report tonight. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, 7 o'clock upstairs.
Great, thank you. Curriculum. Amy.
Yes, I would like the board to consider items 1 and 2. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Brendan. All right. Item number 1 is several field trips, and 2 of which are daytime trips and 2 of which are overnight field trips. Information is attached. Nice to see that one of the overnight field trips, which is for Youth and Government Club, several of our students, 4 of our students serve as officers for the group and will spend an extra day in preparation when they meet in Elizabeth. So kind of nice to see some leadership on the part of our students, additional leadership, I should say. And then item 2, when we met in February, we reviewed for first reading curricula for general biology class at the high school. Met with the teacher and the science administrator, Tom Patterson, and then world languages. We heard from our Latin teacher, James Rowan, and Enrique Pinque, the supervisor for world languages. I just found it interesting. I'd never seen this before, but Latin 3 and 3 honors, there's a section where they teach them together in one classroom, and they're able to differentiate instruction on that level. And then Latin 4 and 4 honors are done the same way. There's only one section for those 2 together, and oftentimes the kids aren't even sure who's in which class. But Mr. Rowan knows, so that's the important part. So I guess we need to do a roll call on approving these 2.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Amy. Moving on to finance, and that's myself. So I'd like the board to consider items number 1 to 14. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kent, thank you. I'd like to call out 3 gifts. First, we'd like to accept a gift of $500 from the ExxonMobil Education Alliance for McKinley School to enhance mathematics and science education. We'd also like to accept the gift of $100 from Mr. Kenneth L. McRitchie to finance the 2019 Ian McRitchie Information Technology Award and the Walton Burris Music Award. And last, we'd like to accept a gift of $30,628.48 from the McKinley School PTO for the purchase and installation of playground equipment, play-safe rubber curbs, wood fiber surfacing, 2 tables, and a loop bike rack for the final phase of the Oasis Playground project. Thank you very much. Those are very generous gifts, and we do appreciate your help in bringing these things to our school system. So, any questions?
No.
No? Dana?
Michael Beelan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Technology, Michael.
Yes, we had our meeting on Friday, March 1st, and covered a number of topics, in particular digital citizenship. During our programs right now, we're talking about being safe online, but it's also just how do you be a good online citizen for other people. Areas we discussed were combining digital literacy and digital citizenship, how younger kids can remain safe online and what information they should or should not give out, managing their privacy so you're not giving out personal information. As they get older, copyright infringement, so if they're putting presentations together, they're just not going and randomly taking graphics or videos off the web because there's copyright on that material. And it's going to be communicated through the library. And we also discussed, we do have a policy on how to behave online, but not on digital citizenship, and we're going to discuss that further. There's a citizenship website that's being presented to all the teachers and staff to give them general information and resources that they have available that they can then communicate it down to the students, including Google Apps that are out there, the SAMR program, and also copyright resources given to different levels. We also talked about, if you remember a couple weeks ago, when we had the storm, there was a website, there was a delay in the messages that were coming out, about an hour delay. There was a glitch that was found with Edleo, where we were receiving the emails about an hour after the text message. Brian Walker, our Chief Technology Officer, was immediately on the phone with Edleo. They found the problem and they fully resolved it, so they don't expect that to come out anymore. You might not get the text message and the email exactly at the same time because there's different strategies in which they come out, and there's different phone banks, and they really control that, and we don't have the insight into how, if there's multiple schools having a storm outage, it could be a little bit farther because they have a certain amount of phone banks versus if it was just isolated to Westfield. But you should not see that 1 hour delay any further.
And I just want to say, the last snowstorm, they were really right on top of each other, both coming from the phone call, text message, everything was together, so we're.
90 seconds start to finish.
And actually, what we talked about is like most people, once they get the message, whether they check it through email or whether they check it through their text message, as long as they're informed, they really don't care, as long as they get one informational method. But I guess some people want all three, so we're doing that. And then we actually were looking at Google Analytics this past week, and just some of the top 5 pages right now are obviously the home page. The parent portal page is second, athletics is third, the district calendar is 4, and events is 5th. And we're going to continue to look at that data and just see, because it's important to see, we just looked at a very high level of what are the most popular pages, but it's important to see where are people going through the site, the paths, and where are they dropping off. So they might hit a dead end, and where they say, well, I'm going to just stop here. Well, let's look at how we can engage them further or point them to the content that we can further enhance their experience on the website. That was it basically for the meeting that we just had. We have our next meeting on Friday, April 12th, and we're going to cover digital electricity and security.
Great.
Thank
Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, I'd like the board to consider the notes for the record. Do we have any unfinished business? No? Do we have any new business? Does anybody have any liaison reports?
I do.
Brandon?
This past Saturday, I was down in Trenton for the school board's legislative committee. Most of the meeting was spent talking about school aid, particularly the districts that lost aid again this year. There is some movement in the assembly to allow those districts to increase their tax levy beyond the 2% to reach at least the state bare minimum adequacy funding. But it's to be seen where that actually goes, because that's all part of the budget negotiations. The one issue that we spent a fair amount of time talking about, because it it changes tort liability for school districts statewide, is Senate Bill S477, which expands the statute of limitations for child abuse claims against the district from the current 2-year statute of limitations to 37 years past the victim's 18th birthday.
That's a change.
Yeah, so 55-year statute of limitations. It passed the Senate and Assembly Judiciary Committees unanimously and is expected to sail through the full Assembly and Senate by the end of this month. Murphy has promised to sign the bill. For some districts that, opening up, and it allows, over the next 2 years, any prior stale claim that would have fallen into that window to be reopened. Since all school districts or most of them are part of the school insurance fund, they expect that rates will go up for everybody. So I'll keep an eye on that and see where that goes.
You said 37, that's an odd number.
Yeah.
I asked that, and Assembly Speaker Coughlin's chief of staff was with us, and he said that most adult victims realize at some time between their 45th and 50th birthday that something happened in their past. So they used that to come up with a window.
At least there's a reason behind it.
I thought it's New Jersey, so you have to ask who are they carving in or carving out. But apparently there's some empirical evidence behind the reason they use 37 years.
Thank you very much. Any other liaison reports?
I was at a library board meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, and they talked about facility improvements, but I won't bore you with those details, but they did say the recently midterm study hours were well attended, so they're considering about doing it again for finals week. So.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize the public for questions or comments. Can you forward and state your name and address?
Hi, Liz Mahalan, 1029 Harding Street in Westfield, New Jersey. I wanted to say thank you for all you do, and welcome to all the new school board members. I attend State Board of Education meetings and Senate hearings, Assembly hearings, and I advocate on behalf of public schools to try and ensure that we get our funding. One of the things that's been going on for about a decade now has been an increase in state funding that's going to private schools, and that comes out of the main budget for public schools. So on the one hand, we are saying we can't afford to fund our public schools, but we're doubling aid that we're sending to the private schools. Obviously not a sustainable issue, and that continued as recently as January. So they're doubling aid for the security and technology departments. Obviously, that was an $11 million jump for that one particular section. There's over, I think, $110 million that goes to private schools. So that's a little bit of an issue. The other issue related to funding is that they just passed the ballot referendum for creating more VOTEC schools. The problem with that is that the bond is to fund the development, the building of the school. The local districts and the counties will be the entities that are funding the actual teachers and everything inside the school, which is going to put further pressure down the line on your public school funding. So those are just some issues, unfortunately, that our local public schools are going to be dealing with in the future. I also wanted to talk about the testing. I'm not sure how many people are aware. I've been keeping track of this. The graduation bill, there was a rapid graduation bill put up when the courts found that the State Department of Education violated the law for graduation. So the courts deemed the regulation by the Department of Education null and void, which meant there was no way for students to graduate coming for class 2019 and 20, 21, and beyond. Obviously, this threw the state and every district into a tizzy, so the governor worked on a plan with the courts, and for 2019 and 2020, those students will be able to use the same methods for 2019 graduation, which is great. So we have a pathway there. But simultaneously, while waiting for the two entities to get together, Senator Ruiz created a bill for graduation. And there's been a lot of confusion and talk about what this bill was and wasn't, and I just wanted to clarify, as somebody who has poured over this bill and spoken with Education Law Center. I work closely with them when I have questions. So what this bill did was, the current graduation bill says one test in 11th grade, English Language Arts and math, and it's a basic skills test. What the new bill did was it said basically any number of tests, unlimited tests in any grade, and there was no proficiency level. So in other words, depending on who the commissioner is, you could either have somebody come in and say, everybody's got to pass the AP test. It could be at whatever level they want it to be. And it could be 6 tests or 7, 8 tests. It could be anything. So this was kind of a wild card. And as you know, every time there is a new governor, there is a new commissioner. So it creates complete havoc and lawsuits galore, as we've seen when you change these things. So that bill passed the Senate, no problem. It passed. It went to the full Senate, I believe. No, it went to the Senate budget hearing, passed. Then it went to the Assembly, and it was stopped in the Assembly. That bill can still be pulled up at any given time. And the problem with doing things like that is that if the tests are too high, if they're too set at the wrong benchmarks, then your alternative is that you have to do portfolio review, which is very expensive. And you'll have a higher percentage of kids not passing, and then each child has to do their own portfolio. So I just bring that to your attention because that bill can come back at any time, and that's going to further exacerbate the budgets, problems, putting more problems into the budgets. One other thing related to that, so you know, there was every year Park had to do a study on the validity of its testing. And the validity last year, what they did was they compared Park to SAT and ACT and NSVPT, you know, one of those long ones. Anyway, and what they found was that 70% of the kids could pass the SAT, only 38% could pass Park. So the same kids taking the test. So it showed that there was a much higher benchmark to pass Park, and making that a graduation requirement obviously would have put pressure on districts where you'd be doing a lot of portfolio reviews. So these are the kinds of things that I think we have to look out for in the future when we see these kinds of coming out, kind of question it so that our budgets don't get blown up by irresponsible things from the top. Unfortunately, finally, the commissioner has been meeting with superintendents from across the state, and he's been going to districts and statewide to get feedback so that we don't make the mistakes that we've made in the past, and he's hoping to get a well-rounded perspective and buy-in from everybody before we create something new. So thank you very much for listening. I'm sorry if I bored you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Perfect. Does anybody else have any comments or questions that they'd like to come forward for? That being said, I move to adjourn this evening's meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brendan? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We're good for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No private session?